Welcome to Double Fries NOSLAW. It's Sunday evening. Richie, it feels like the old days when we used to do these at night every week. We'd be trying to figure out like what NFL games were on or off or where stuff was. But we've been morning guys or day guys for quite a while. But a little bit of travel has us going later. But thank you guys for tuning in. Double Fries NOSLAW. Florida State falls to Clemson 34-28. Their record now 4-3, and they get a much needed bye week to get rested, get recovered. We're going to talk about the game, talk about the rest of the season, kind of how we see things lining up. Richie, I'll ask and we'll get going. How was your weekend? I saw you on a bachelor party. It looked like a lot of fun.
It was a blast, but it was a lot, man. I am not made for the Bourbon Trail in Louisville at 34 years old. It was rough. Today has not been great. I got the hair of the dog going on. I got Jordan Travis koozie with the Churchill Downs because we went there yesterday. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, man, rough weekend for all of my football teams. The Bucks, my goodness, Florida State. I'm not overly upset about that game. We'll talk about it though.
Florida State falls, but we did have a good time out there yesterday. Thanks to all of those who were out at the tailgate and hung out at the game. Great time out there. Of course, the Guthrie's chicken was flowing. Gramco was out there. Bay Cannon was out there. We had Chris on the show on Wednesday night. He does a beer that's called Four Patriots. We're excited to continue to work with them. We had a couple of kegs of that we killed. Watched the Alabama-Tennessee game while we were out there. So a lot of fun. Thanks for those that came out. And those that hung out. So what? That one was incredible.
What a game. Yeah.
That game was so much fun. So yeah, good times out there yesterday. Of course, didn't get the result we wanted, but we had a good time nonetheless, and appreciate all those who supported and came out. We're going to do another one, same exact thing, like same vibes for the Florida weekend. I'll get those tickets listed in the next week or so. We kind of ran out of space yesterday, so get your tickets quick if you're gonna come out and hang out with us for the Florida game. Appreciate Guthrie's and their support. 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe. When that they made the chicken and then just immediately brought it out, so it was like super fresh, and yeah, it hits every time. But when it's like super fresh, it's on another level because they called me. They're like, "Hey, we're running a little bit behind, but the chicken, like, we're making it like it'll be fresh." And I was like, "Nah, that's perfect." So anyway, it was good stuff. Appreciate them. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to Salomon Digital Marketing. If you're watching or listening, Salomon Digital Marketing works with some of our NIL athletes or some of our athletes through NIL. They worked with Jordan Travis. They've worked with AJ Duffy, and they've got other stuff going now. I put a link to their Twitter in the description in the show notes, so you guys can go follow them. If you super follow their CEO, TJ Salomon, all proceeds from that will go to FSU's NIL efforts. He also kind of gives you a little bit of behind the scenes of how some of that NIL stuff works, when he's able to announce stuff early. It's a good cause to support. You guys go follow TJ Salomon. I put, again, their Twitter handle in the show notes, and you guys can give them a follow. Appreciate their support. And I think they might be having a giveaway coming up soon for this Miami game. So keep an eye there and get entered to potentially win something there. We'll be announcing more on that soon. All right, Richie, Knowles dropped this one in a game that I kind of want to talk about this because I think this is a good point. You wrote this down. A game that wasn't maybe as close as the final score indicated as far as an outcome, but statistically may have been. So let's get your initial thoughts, and then let's kind of talk about that, both sides of it. Because I think in some ways you're right, like the outcome wasn't, but statistically, and really outside of a bad few minutes, which we'll get to, Florida State played this fairly well, I think. But all right, I'll shut up and let you talk.
Yeah, no, it was a really great start. Obviously, Florida State once again marches down on the opening drive, gets a touchdown, and we're feeling really good. Man, it was just so frustrating. I'd been to more than a few distilleries before the game, so my recollection may not be the greatest here, but man, it was such a great start for Florida State. But yeah, it all came down to the end of the first half, start of the second half, where Florida State kind of fell apart a little bit. But man, they were so prepared and ready for this game, and it felt so good early on.
And then, Clemson just did what Clemson does. That's the reason I'm not so upset. It's number 3 team in the country now, right? Because Alabama dropped out, I'm sure. So that was a tough opponent. And it's unfortunate that you let a 4 or 5 minute window end of the first half, early second half, dictate the outcome, because that was a real opportunity for Florida State. And they really could have won the game. I don't think Florida State was outmanned. I think Clemson's definitely the more talented team, the better team. But I don't think Florida State, just watching it, again, we're going to talk about the box score in the numbers, but last year, Florida State lost by 10. Obviously, the last play was a fluke, backdoor cover. Vegas people loved it. But this year, Florida State dominated Clemson in the box score. They just were not great situationally, and ultimately, that's what it came down to.
Yeah, which is frustrating, right? Like last week was a different kind of frustrating. And at the end of the day, I'm not playing the moral victory game or like, oh, at least you played close. But I mean, I kind of expected to lose this game close, and you ended up losing this game close. And I actually do think it's a big deal that Florida State continued to fight back and went down and scored there late to make it somewhat interesting, right? Like obviously you would have needed to get an onside kickback, and that didn't happen. But I mean, I think it's a good thing for Florida State to have not just thrown their arms up and said like, "Oh, this game's over," And so they do show that fight. They do show that kind of grit and resolve, and show you that like, hey, had this game been a little bit different, had you put yourself in a little bit better position earlier in the game, you might have had a position. You might have been driving there with 2 minutes to go to try and win the thing, as opposed to just cut it to one score. And yeah, I mean, statistically, Richie talks about the box score, and we won't stay on here super long. If you have comments, of course, hit the super chat. If you have questions, we're happy to try and answer stuff. Or if you're watching, thumbs up, like, and subscribe, all that stuff. But yeah, Florida State comes out and drives 75 yards on Clemson in about 3 minutes and makes it look easy and scores a touchdown, and then forces a 3 and out. And Clemson does come back and tie it up, but then drives 93. Florida State drives 93 yards for a touchdown, and it kind of felt like it was going to be a back and forth thing. Florida State gets stopped on 4th down and 2 from about the 31. Even if you had a pretty reliable kicker, I like the decision to go for it there. You'd like to be able to pick up 2 yards, but that doesn't work out. You get that first down and you continue to move the ball. You're probably putting points up on the scoreboard on that drive, right? And then the very next drive, you get the ball back and fumble it after driving up to midfield, and you kind of, I don't know, you had more chance to put points on the board there, but the fumble just ended up being a backbreaker, right? Like it felt like, and there was there was 47 seconds left when Jordan fumbled it, and you were like, oh man, we might be able to get like into scoring range, and maybe get 7, maybe have a long field goal attempt. But even if you miss that, like, we're just going to go to that half down 3, and you fumble with 47 seconds left and give Clemson just prime field position, and you're like, well, this is not good, right? Like they're probably going to go up 2 scores.
Not ideal.
Yeah, and that's what you talk about, right? Like Clemson's the more talented team. Clemson's the better team, and you gave them, like, Clemson didn't make mistakes that gave Florida State massive chances in this game. But Florida State made a lot of those mistakes and took points off the board on themselves, put points on the board for Clemson with just the inability to execute, right? You don't convert on a 4th down, right? And 4th and 2 is tough against the Clemson team, but you got to find a way to convert, right? You fumble the ball with 47 seconds left. And if you just take that sack, you just take the sack and you don't fumble it, you're probably not scoring on that drive, right? Clemson probably uses a timeout because it's like 3rd and 20. And you run the ball one more time, make them take another timeout, and you punt it 40 yards, and they've got to go 80 yards in 30 seconds. And if they do that, then great, right? But you're not giving them a short field. And so that's what it just was, so many self-inflicted wounds. You go to the half down 24-10, really not feeling great because Clemson gets the kickoff in the second half, and they were kind of doing whatever they wanted offensively. But I guess you still have a chance, right? You get to the half, you're down 10. How close did you guys watch it, or were you out on the trail doing stuff, or like what were your thoughts at halftime, I guess is what I'm alluding to?
So honestly, at halftime, I was fairly defeated, to be honest, because just the way it ended, right? Like you mentioned, you cannot give Clemson the ball back right there. And the fact that you give up a 69-yard return to open the third quarter, It's brutal, right? Just brutal. And Will Shipley, like, I hope that kid can go pro, because 2 years in a row now he's terrorized us. He's a phenomenal player, and shout out to him. But my goodness, he just has had his way with Florida State the past 2 years. But yeah, like, man, right before the half, if you don't give up that touchdown, you don't have that turnover, it's a completely different ballgame at that point. And I would have loved Florida State to had it close, like one score with like 6 minutes left in the game, right? And give Clemson some pressure that they haven't really felt all season long. A little bit of Wake Forest again, but that was like a neutral field game or neutral site game. But in Doak with that crowd, I got some thoughts about the crowd leaving early. We'll get to that later, but man, it was just all there for the taking early on. The way the game started, Florida State averaged 6.6 yards a carry last night against the best defense potentially in the country. And that was a phenomenal result for Florida State as far as just the way they dominated the line of scrimmage. Trey Benson had himself a night. I think, without Trayshawn Ward, I thought for sure our rushing attack would be non-existent.
Yeah.
But no, it was there and it was working. We just got too far behind. And when you play from behind that long for a game, it changes the way you coach, especially when you don't have a kicker. It changes everything. And it was frustrating. But yeah, at halftime, I felt defeated. Even when they, had that big return and scored the early touchdown in the third quarter, I was like, man, this really stinks. But at the same time, Florida State was playing really well. They, again, situationally, we just could not finish where we needed to. And that's where Florida State lost the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, just weren't good. Like you said, situationally weren't good in the last 4 and the first 4 of the second half. And like you said, the fumble was a backbreaker. And then if to add insult to injury, the kick return and then touchdown on the very next play to put you down 17. I think at that point, you're kind of like, man, down 17 to a top 5 team in the country, like it's going to take a miracle. And the Noles got close, and the Noles fought, and the defense did come up big a couple of times, but it was just obviously too much to overcome. We'll talk second half in just a minute. I want to give a shout out to Gramco, thegramco.com. Had a bunch of their product, had a bunch of their stuff out at the tailgate yesterday. Everybody was enjoying the seltzers. They've got some THC, some Delta 8 seltzers, Richie, that you're going to have to get.
How were they? I've not had one. I cannot wait to try one.
The guava, I try not to hit too many of the gummies, but the the guava is phenomenal and is what you guys should absolutely go after. But they also have a mixed berry and a key lime that's really, really good. Great stuff from thegramco.com. You can use code DFNS25 to save 25% off all of your Delta 8 products and needs. Whether it's the seltzers, the Wake and Bake coffee, the hard candies, the gummies, whatever you're looking for, they will take care of you. Second half starts. We talked about the kick return. What did you think about the fake punt?
Oh, man, So I go back to the national championship game, right? Like everybody in the world knew Florida State was desperate, but we had Carlos Williams, who was just a freak athlete, right? Who could make that fake punt work out for a first down when the whole world knew it was going to be a fake punt, right? You don't have that kind of athlete right now, and I think that's where Florida State's at. You got to recruit that kind of athlete to this roster, because I think that's what held Florida State back. Is you have a good roster. I'm very pleased with the roster we have as a whole right now, but it's nowhere close to a national championship roster, right? So, I mean, being on your own 30-something yard line, I respect the call. I think Mike is maybe too aggressive at times, but I don't hate the call. I kind of hated the play call though.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and I understand that your fake is the element of surprise. You got 4 of the 5 yards, right? Like, so you did get fairly. It's not like you got stuff in the backfield or anything. And so, man, hindsight's 20/20. Because if he gets it, then you're gonna say like, "Oh man, what a great call and a gutsy time," and maybe it leads to a touchdown that drive, or who knows. But yeah, I get that too. Like, just you're giving it to Rector, and if you're looking for 4 yards, 5 yards. Do you have a better chance without the element of surprise and just, getting Jordan up there and trying to get 5 yards? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't love it, but I also get it. Like I think that you punt the ball back to Clemson there. You were deep in your own territory. They probably go down and score again. Which, here's what I'll say. Shout out the defense, because the defense was put in a terrible position right here. Only gave up 3 yards, and what, they kicked a field goal. No, I'm sorry, they gave up 18 yards. So they gave up a couple of first downs, but then Clemson wasn't able to move it once they got inside of the Florida State 10-yard line. I think Clemson holding may have helped us out there a little bit, but kept it 3 scores, right? Florida State was able to keep it to 3 scores. The teams traded punts. And then this is where, like, it really felt like it broke your back, right? Like, it was Florida State moves inside of the 2-yard line, has first and goal at the 2, and run, 2 incompletions, a run for a loss of 2, and then another incompletion. And the Noles don't score, leave the ball on the 4-yard line. And there was a lot of time left at this point, right? I think that happened with like 13 minutes to go. That last pass on the 4-yard line, that fourth and goal. Certainly don't think that, if this would have converted, we would have certainly won or anything like that, because Clemson probably plays it a little bit different. But, we got stopped on 3 fourth downs. That's 3 turnovers, right? The one that was 4th and 2 in the first half, the fake punt, and then the 4th and 4 on the goal line. That is not good, right? Like, even, I don't think you should have kicked a field goal there, because it wouldn't have ended up mattering anyway. You would have covered the spread. But, if you don't have the fake punt and then you just are able to kick a field goal on this one, then, it's a tie game at the end of the game, And so, like, I don't know, just, again, self-inflicted wounds. Can't convert on a 4th and 4 after driving 76 yards, right? But couldn't get those last 4. Again, the defense steps up, forces a 3 and out. The Noles score a touchdown. Clemson has to punt again. The Noles score another touchdown to cut it to 6, but they can't get the onside kick back and lose by 6. They fought back, which I do think matters. But, I mean, that's just the standard now, right? Like, I saw other people talk about this too. Like, that's not something I'm praising anymore, because this isn't like 2018, 2019, 2020, where guys were quitting. Like, that's just what, like, Florida State's always going to fight back, and they're always going to be in it, and they're always going to put their best foot forward, right? Or, like, whatever cliches you want to use. So, like, that's not like oh, wow, well, at least they fought hard against Clemson. Like, no, you needed to win this game for us to be happy, right? Like, you're not going to be happy with losses anymore. But I will say they've competed well the last few weeks, just too many mistakes. But overall, so, like, big picture, the way they competed against NC State and Wake Forest and Clemson, losing sucks. But I do think the team is set up for a little bit of a run down the stretch. And we'll talk about that. There's not going to be any games that were as tough as last night's, and you lost last night by 6, right? You play some team. You maybe play one Syracuse team on the road that's pretty tough, and then you've got 2 rivalry games. And outside of that, you should be in pretty good shape for the rest of the year. So I think it's tough. I think it's unfortunate that you couldn't find a way to win one of these, but I think that they're in kind of great shape going forward, especially if they can get healthy. It was good to see Douglas back out there. But big picture, what are your thoughts, on the season right now, Richie?
Yeah, so last night doesn't bother me as much. The Wake Forest game doesn't bother me that much, because I don't think that game was as close as the score ended either. The NC State game, I think, is going to be the sore point of the season for me, because that's a game you were up 17-3 at the half. You had to win that game. So whether we finish with 7 or 8 wins, you're going to look back and say, oh, it should have been 8 or 9, because that NC State loss, inexcusable in my opinion. But what can you do? I think both of us had us. We did our preseason show with Colby Dant from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and I think we both had us at 4-3 through 7 games. Like, the games, we were off on which games would win or lose, but at the same time, this is exactly where we thought we were going to be at this point in the season. Just having the 3 toughest teams on the schedule all in a row. And again, it's the NC State game for me, because that's a game that you should have won. Like, you were in position, inexcusable loss. Last night, again, it would have been nice to win. Clemson's more talented. They are better coached as of right now. It's a game that, there's no shame in losing to a top 5 team by 6 points, in my opinion. But it's just frustrating. The NC State game is just going to loom. It's like 2012, right? You think about the NC State game, because if you win that game, I think you have a different mentality and you beat Florida, and then you're playing Notre Dame for a national championship, and you probably win the national title 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Just sucks the way it happened. But yeah, looking at the back half of the schedule, 5 games left, I think Florida State's going to be favored in all except maybe the game at Syracuse it's not the Carrier Dome anymore, which is ironic because now they actually do have AC, so they dropped Carrier as their sponsor. But it's a lot of winnable games, but like you mentioned, DJ, 2 rivalry games. And we all know rivalry games get funky. Things happen. You never know. Having to go down to Doak South, that's going to be a tough game. We have fun talking about Miami and their struggles they've had this year. Shout out LSU for beating UF, by the way, as well. But yeah, man, there's a huge opportunity. I mean, it's an outside shot, but if you go 5-0, you're 9-3. That's better than any of us thought we'd be before the season. Oh. And we're struggling right now. We're going to go a month without a win because of 3 straight top 15 opponents in a bye. But at the same time, if you finish this season strong, I mean, that's something to build on. And I'm actually really excited. I cannot wait for Georgia Tech to come to town after the bye week. And I'm really excited to see how the season ends, despite, these past 3 weeks, which again, you would have liked to get at least one. I thought we could get at least 2 of them, but the NC State game is the one that just is going to bother me for a while, I think.
Yeah. And like the team always responds. We talked about that. The team always does a good job of fighting back and responding. And I think that they'll do that, right? Like I think they'll beat Georgia Tech. I think the Miami game will be a good game that Florida State should win. If they play, honestly, even if they played as well as they did last night and take away 1 or 2 of the mistakes, they'll beat Miami comfortably. Like I think they'll win that by like 10 or 13. I think we'll find out a lot about Syracuse. They play Clemson, Notre Dame, and Pitt the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's great for us.
They're
right there.
Yeah, if they've found a way to win that Notre Dame or Pitt game, or maybe both of those, and only lost to Clemson, then I still think they'll be fairly highly ranked. We'll find out a lot about what they look like, and then you beat Louisiana, and then you get to take on a Florida team. They just got decimated by LSU last night. Did you know LSU scored on every single possession that they had?
I didn't watch a single minute of the game. I woke up at like 3 a.m. and checked the score. I'm like, thank God, I really wanted LSU to win that game. And
LSU scored on every single possession they had. They did have another muffed punt, which took away a possession from them. But the
was that Boutte?
Say what?
Was that Boutte who muffed it again?
I don't know, dude. Yeah, I didn't watch that closely. But yeah, I mean, so Florida's defense is terrible. Their offense can put up some points at times. So, but I think that'll be a game that's winnable. I think worst case, you really have to. I mean, you have to look at this as like, okay, 3-2 worst case puts us at where we wanted to be, right? Which was 7-5, what we all kind of predicted. And if you can find a way to so to me, the Georgia Tech and the Louisiana games are done. Like you lose either of those, and I've got big problems.
Yeah.
You lose to Georgia Tech, you need to go 4-0 to end the year to kind of get that bad taste out of my mouth. If but you beat Georgia Tech, you beat Louisiana. You should go 2-1 in those other 2 games, right? You should either split with your rivals and beat Qs, or you should, win one of your rivals and beat Qs on the road. You maybe drop the other one. But yeah, I mean, I think you've got an outside chance at 5-0 there. I'd put it 5-0 at, I don't know, 20%, 15%, somewhere in that range,
I think I might go higher than that, honestly. Like every game is winnable.
Yeah. So to me, it's like 3 winnable games so you'd have like 50-50-50. Yeah. So that compounds down to like 15 to 20%, somewhere in there. But yeah, I agree. I mean, you beat Georgia Tech and then beat Miami, and I think you're really looking at like a 50% chance to go, 3-0 in the last 3. So yeah, I think the outlook is still really good. You did have an opportunity, but you probably won a couple of games early that you shouldn't. And so that's kind of how football works, right? Like you win one you shouldn't, you lose one you shouldn't. Here we are, right? 4-3, kind of where we all expected. I actually don't remember if I had 4-3 or if I had 3-4 right now. I think I had 3-4. So I don't know. But either way, I mean, we're really close to what was predicted. Yeah. It's frustrating because you did have a chance, and you've got to see some guys get better. Should be a little bit more healthy. I would expect that you get Lovett back in the next couple of weeks, hopefully just for that Georgia Tech game so that he can start to get some reps and not be coming back just for Miami. Though their running game is atrocious. So I think, what's most important is having I'd love him back for all 5, but what's most important is having Lovett back for Syracuse and Florida. I don't even know if I'd play him against Louisiana. But if you can have him back for Syracuse and Florida, I think that's really, really good. Obviously Miami too, but again, their running game is just absolute trash. So I'm not really worried about that. They just don't know how to run the ball. So yeah, I mean, I like where the team can still get to, right? We called this hell month to start when the schedule came out, talked about how difficult this would be. May do a video on how dumb the ACC is for jumbling all of the good games in conference in 1 month. It wasn't just us, like happened for NC State and Clemson and everybody too. So just stupid. Well, no, I don't want to give away all the stuff on the video, but we'll talk about that at another time. But yeah, I'm excited about where we can go. I want to give one more shout out, Richie, and then we can kind of go over anything else you want or any, final thoughts, any closing stuff. But shout out to the best local retailer, the only family-owned and operator retailer, FSU merchandise, Garnet and Gold. You can go to garnetandgold.com if you're coming into town for any games the rest of the way, whether it be Louisiana, Georgia Tech, or Florida. Go to garnetandgold.com, put your order in, and use NOSLAW. That's NOSLAW to get 15% off of your order. Garnetandgold.com is the place to shop and the place to stop by on game day to get all of your FSU gear. Appreciate them and their support. Garnetandgold.com. Again, NOSLAW, NOSLAW, to save 15%. Richie, you got anything else? What I know you had a shout out on here. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or use that in your shout outs, but anything else on the game, on the team, anything going forward?
Yeah, I'll save my shout out for last. And if you're watching live, you see my hat, you know what my shout out is going to be. But yeah, man, again, I think the NC State loss is what makes this game hurt even more, right? If you would beat NC State and then lose a tough game to Clemson, no big deal. But at the same time, again, like we said, when I went back predicting the schedule, I had us at 4-3 through 7 games. So we're exactly where I thought we would be. So I can't be upset. It just sucks that, if you think about it this way, if the games have been spread out, right? Wake Forest was week 2, NC State was week 4, Clemson was week 11. I don't think we're upset, right? We're like, okay, yeah, those were really good teams. They're all top 15. Clemson's top 3 in the country now. So how the schedule's set up is just frustrating because it sucks. We're going to go again a month without a win, but it makes those first 4 wins that much more impressive. The LSU game was massive. That Louisville game, shout out Tate Rodemaker, that was a massive win. Imagine if we had lost that game, we'd be 3-4 right now. So I think Florida State is right on schedule. I think Mike Norvell is doing a really good job. His play calling, some of it I have issues with, but at the same time, man, these players love playing for Coach Norvell. They really do. And it's evident in every single game they play. So it's frustrating that we have lost 3 in a row, but don't forget, guys, we started the season 4-0 with some really good wins. So on the season as a whole, when you get rid of the emotion and just think about where the team is right now, I think we're on schedule, and I'm happy where we're at, to be honest.
I'm not satisfied with the last month. I do think that I'm going to be happy about the way the last month or the upcoming month goes. So we'll see. Fingers crossed that I'm right there. Appreciate Salamone Digital Marketing. Appreciate Garnet and Gold, and appreciate Gramco. Those can be my shout outs for the night. Anything before we go, Richie?
Yeah, my shout out Brooks Koepka, baby. Let's go. So I woke up at like 4 a.m. today, which is ridiculous coming off a bachelor party. But yeah, I was watching the Live Golf Tournament in Jeddah from Saudi Arabia, and Brooks was on top of the leaderboard, fell behind a little bit. And I was so upset because I was watching on my laptop in the plane before we took off. There was 2 holes left, and then we took off, and then I missed it. But he wins on a 3rd playoff hole, makes a birdie putt to win his first Live tournament event. I might be going down to Live Miami. Spoiler alert for that one. I'm excited for that. But yeah, just love seeing that. And when he made his birdie putt to win on the 3rd playoff hole, really cool. His brother comes out and just sprays him with champagne. And I will always support a Knoll whether you like the live or not, guys, I understand where you come from, but I was really happy for Brooks.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm always down with Brooks. I saw Trey Jones the other night in Tallahassee. So
I was so
Trey
mad
Jones.
when you sent that tweet at me.
Oh yeah, and shout out LSU. Not only did they
Yes.
win the game, they made a funny video this morning with won't back down on it. So it's like at UF. All right, we'll be back with more content throughout the week. We'll preview. Oh, no preview show this week. So yeah, screw that. We'll be back with more content throughout the week. No live show on Wednesday because there's nothing to preview. Enjoy the bye week. Rest up. I know that you guys have hot takes and your social media feelings are hurt right now too, but rest up. The team's going to rest up. We'll all be better in 2 weeks when we beat Georgia Tech. So, Richie, thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you guys all soon. Go Noles.